Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you all have seen my previous video which was on aptitude preparation for placements. In that I have covered almost everything that you need to prepare for aptitude, as well as I have given you the detailed strategy regarding it. Now in this particular video we'll be looking into the strategy for cracking the coding round as well as technical round, as well as we'll also see some of the most important topics that are widely asked in the technical related rounds when it comes to placement. So the very first topic which is most important for you to prepare is data structures and algorithms. Irrespective of what field you are interested in or what interview you are giving, these two topics are the center of attraction of almost every single interview and coding round. The next topic is object oriented programming. First thing you should do is to pick any language which is object oriented. I would recommend you to learn Java or Python. Once you choose your language of interest, then you should learn all the different object oriented concepts and try to implement it with the help of the language that you have chosen. Object oriented programming is very important when it comes to the field of development. The next important topic to do is database management system. Almost all the technical MCQ round or coding round, or in the technical interviews also, they ask questions related to DBMS, especially when it comes to data related jobs, for example data science, data engineering or data analysis. So your basics of DBMS must be very much clear. The next important section to learn is software engineering. There are a lot of concepts under this software engineering domain which are widely asked in technical interviews. And every candidate, irrespective of what job they are applying, they must have deep understanding about all the different basic concepts that comes under this particular domain. Don't worry, we will look in detail what all topic you should cover when it comes to software engineering domain. Next important topic is operating system. Especially when you are applying for software development jobs, you will be asked to work on a particular operating system. So you should have basic understanding of all the concepts that are involved in operating system domain. Next is networking and web technologies. Almost everyone should have basic knowledge of web technologies as well as the different protocols that are involved in networking. Don't worry, we'll look into all these topics. The next important topic that you should cover is your domain of interest. Whatever domain you are interested in, you should have a deep knowledge of that particular domain. You should know all the theoretical concepts related to it, as well as you should have a deep understanding of how to implement those concepts. Your domain of interest can be data science, machine learning, web development, UI UX design, etc. So now let's have a look at all the different important topics that you must learn under all these sections. Starting with data structures, the first important topic you should cover is arrays and strings. As I already told you that you should pick any one language which is object oriented, and you should try to learn basics of that programming language, for example Python. So under Python you should learn arrays and strings. You should know how arrays works, what are the different properties that are applied in arrays. Similarly, you should work on strings also, because these are the most common topics that are usually asked in technical coding round as well as in interviews. I have made this entire playlist on arrays in Python, which covers almost every single concept that is related to arrays, as well as I have implemented every single operations that can be performed on arrays, and also have solved some real world problems that contains the application of arrays concepts. In this particular playlist, I have covered every single concept related to arrays with animations. I have explained it, as well as I have implemented it with the help of Python language. I have explained all the concepts with the help of animations as well as eye-catchy content. So please visit this playlist and have a look at it. The next important topic in data structures is stacks. Stacks is one of the most widely asked topic in technical interviews. The interviewer will ask you to implement stack with the help of arrays, or they can also ask you to implement stacks with the help of linked list. You must be aware of all the operations related to stacks. The next important topic is queues. Queues are also one of the most important topics. The questions can be oriented regarding implementation of queues using arrays, circular queues, double-ended queues, which is commonly called as D queues, and priority queues. Even if you don't know how to implement these types of queues, still you should have a conceptual knowledge and you should be able to explain theoretically with the help of an example. But at least you should be aware of how to implement simple queues using some language. The next important topic is linked list. You must know how to implement linked list using a particular language. You must know how it works, as well as the types of linked list are also important. For example, singly linked list, doubly linked list, circular linked list. You must be aware of the detailed algorithm as well as the strategy that these types of linked list work on. The next important topic is trees. You should be able to implement trees, at least you should be able to implement binary trees. The different operations that can be performed, for example insertion, deletion of an element, or traversal related to that particular binary tree. You should be aware of that. Also, you should be aware of the algorithms that binary search trees, AVL trees, red-black trees follow. Sometimes the interviewer might ask you to solve a problem manually related to trees. So you must be aware of that too. Now, you must also be aware of the concept of prefix trees. These are nothing but tries. So you should have a knowledge of this particular data structure, how it is used to store the strings, and what makes it efficient. You must be aware of those things. The next important data structure that you must prepare are graphs. Graph data structure are little tough to implement, but you should have at least a basic knowledge of the algorithms that are involved in graph data structure, the different traversal techniques that are involved in it. You must be aware of all the theoretical concepts related to graphs. And side by side, just try to implement it if you can. Otherwise, be prepared with the pseudocodes as well as the algorithms related to all the different types of graphs. The next important topic that comes under data structures is hashing and hash tables. You should be aware of the concept of hashing, what is a hash function and why it is used. What makes hash tables efficient to store the data. Hash tables are little easier to implement, hence you should try to implement hash tables, as well as you should also know the properties of hashing. So these are all the different important topics that you should cover under the data structures. And with this, you should also learn the different real life examples that are related to all these different data structures. For example, in the interview, they can ask you what is the real life example where linked list is used. Comment down if you know. If you don't know, then linked list is used in music players. Similarly, they can ask you different applications of any of the data structures that is listed over here. Even in the coding round also, applications of data structures will be asked. So I hope the data structure concept and the detailed topic that are involved in it is clear. The next topic is algorithms. Under the algorithm section, the most important topic is sorting algorithms. In this, there are most important 5 algorithms which are widely asked in almost every single interview. It may be asked in technical interviews or it may be asked in coding round also. Bubble sort, selection sort, insertion sort, merge sort and quick sort. These are the most important sorting algorithms. And you must be able to implement it in your language of choice with or without recursion. And to make your task easier, I have made an entire playlist on sorting algorithms in which I have explained all these 5 sorting algorithms in detail with their implementations also in Python language. Each of this is explained under 2 minutes. Each and every concept with example is explained with the help of animations, as well as precise explanation is given on that. Also, every single algorithm is implemented hands-on live in front of you. You will also get the knowledge of how to implement it from scratch, how to apply logics and where to use what concept. You can gain a lot of knowledge through this playlist. You can access this particular playlist from our channel in the playlist section. The next important topic is searching algorithms. Under this, there are total 4 important searching algorithms. that is linear search, binary search, ternary search, and interpolation search. These four are must to do. Apart from this, there is one more searching algorithm which is called as jump search. So if you get time, then you can also learn jump search algorithm. You must understand the logic of how this algorithm works, and with that you should also be able to implement it practically with the help of any programming language. And again, to make your task much easier, I have made a playlist on this searching algorithms, in which I have explained all the important searching algorithm from scratch. I have explained it with animations. Every single theoretical concept is explained with an example. Also, I have made videos on how to implement it in Python language from scratch. Each and every video is of the duration less than 5 minutes. You can access this playlist for sure from the playlist section of our channel. Again, I am telling you, don't think of skipping these two topics, searching and sorting algorithms. You should learn this at any cost. Now once we are done with this, you should next move to graph algorithms. Under the graph algorithms, the breadth first search, depth first search, these two algorithms which are used for searching elements from trees and graph must be clear to you all. You should be able to implement it from scratch in any of the languages. Apart from this, you should have knowledge of Dijkstra algorithm as well as Bellman-Ford algorithm. At least you should be able to write the algorithm, pseudocode or flowchart of these two algorithms, Dijkstra and Bellman-Ford. Also try to practice to implement it from scratch in your language of choice. Along with this, you should also be good in dynamic programming. In this, you should be able to understand the concept of how dynamic programming can have an impact in solving the problems and how it reduces the computational complexity of any problem. So try to solve problems on dynamic programming. The next concept that you must be aware of is greedy algorithms. Under this greedy algorithm, you should be able to understand the approach of how greedy algorithm works, as well as you should know some of the algorithms that are using this greedy approach. For example, Kruskal and Prim's algorithm uses this greedy approach. So you must be aware of these two algorithms, which are used for constructing the minimum spanning tree. Apart from this, there are many other algorithms which uses the greedy approach. Try to have a look at it. The next type of algorithm is divide and conquer. You should understand the concept how it works. For example, merge sort uses divide and conquer strategy. There are a lot of problems available on the internet which you can solve through divide and conquer strategy. So just have a look at those problems and try to solve it with the help of this strategy by understanding its concept. The next topic is backtracking. This concept might be confusing as well as tough, but this concept is always asked in big companies. So you should understand the conceptual knowledge behind it, as well as you should be able to solve certain problems using backtracking. For example, finding out all the permutations and combinations of a particular string. So you can solve similar problems to ace this topic. So these all are the topics that you must do under the algorithm section. Now the next section is object-oriented programming, which is also called as OOPS. I already told you that you should pick any language of your interest which is object-oriented, and you must be aware of all the concepts under it. Now, under this object-oriented programming concept, you must be aware of classes, objects, and inheritance. All the types of inheritance must be conceptually clear to you all, as well as you should be able to implement it from scratch. The next topic is polymorphism, encapsulation, and abstraction. What are the different usages of these particular topics must be clear to you all. Why we use polymorphism, how inheritance is used for code reusability, why encapsulation is a good practice, and why abstraction is needed. All these topics must be clear. And apart from this, you should also learn the concept of exception handling. You should be aware of all the keywords under the exception handling concept, and also you should be aware of all the real life examples where exception handling can prove to be the best to use. You should also be aware of the topic design patterns, how to implement it and why it is needed, how design pattern can be useful for solving the commonly occurring problems in software development. Under the design pattern, you must be aware of at least two important design patterns, that is factory method and singleton method. So I hope this section is clear. Now let's move on to the next section, which is again an important section, and it is DBMS, that is Database Management System. Under the DBMS section, you should be aware of the relational database concepts. For example, how database is stored in the relational databases, the concept of entity relationship diagrams, the concept of generalizations and specialization, as well as the concept of tables and the different keys or the attributes that are involved in it. This section is very important, especially when you are applying for data related jobs, for example data scientist, data engineer or data analyst. As a software developer too, you must be aware of the concept of database management systems. The next topic is SQL queries and joins. The structured query language is very much important because most of the interviewers love this particular topic and they ask much of the questions based on this SQL queries. You should be aware of the DDL, DML, DCL as well as TCL commands because a lot of questions are asked on these commands. Apart from this, you must be aware of fetching particular data based on the queries. You should also be aware of the different types of joins, for example inner join, outer join, natural join, etc. Apart from this, you should also know the stored procedures as well as the concept of limit in SQL. Don't forget to learn the concept of views in SQL. Try to solve different scenario based questions. For example, what is the SQL query for fetching the second highest salary of an employee? You should practice such questions. The next important topic is normalization and denormalization. You should be aware of all the types of normalization as well as denormalization techniques, as well as you should be aware of why it is used. The next important topic is database indexing as well as optimization techniques. For example, optimizing your query, indexing a particular table. You should be aware of all this. At least you should be aware of the first 3 concepts in detail, and then if time permits, then you can go to the 4th section. So I hope the database management system section is clear and all the topics are also clear. The next important topic is software engineering. The software engineering section is asked in almost every single interview. For developing any project, certain guidelines and approaches are to be followed. And all these things you will learn under this software engineering section. The first and the most important topic that you must do is software development life cycle, which is also called as SDLC, and the different concepts that are involved in each phase inside it. So in SDLC life cycle there are certain phases and every phase contains different rules and strategies which are very important whenever any company develops a project. So this particular life cycle must be clear to you all. Now under the SDLC, there are a lot of models which defines different approaches to carry out a particular task. You must do these 4 to 5 models, that is waterfall, agile, scrum, kanban, spiral and V model. Agile model is very much important, so don't even try to skip it. With this, you should also have basic knowledge of testing. Now under testing, there are a lot of types, out of which you must be aware of the basics of black box, white box, unit testing, functional testing and overview of tools of each and every types of testing. That means what all are the different tools that are used in the current situation for these types of testing. Now apart from this, you should always be aware of software configuration management, that is SCM. Under this topic, there are a lot of topics, out of which version control and CI/CD is very much important, that is continuous integration and continuous development. You should also have a knowledge of all the tools that are involved for version controlling. For example, GitHub is widely used for that, and for CI/CD also, what all different tools are used. You must be aware of that. So these all are the important topics that are must to do under the software engineering section. Theoretical questions will be asked in technical interviews based on these concepts. The next section is operating system. Under the operating system, you must be aware of the concept process management and synchronization. It is very much important to learn how processes are managed in any of the operating system. The next is memory management and virtual memory. The next important topic is file systems and disk management. You must be aware of this. And lastly, you should be aware of the CPU scheduling algorithms, for example, FCFS, SGF. You should know which algorithm is best of all and why it is best. You should also know what strategy they use, and you should also be able to explain the algorithm of them. So that's it for the operating system section. You should be aware of all these topics. Now, the next section is networking and web technologies. Now, under the networking section, we have TCP/IP protocols and the OSI layers of networks. You should be aware of the TCP/IP network layer as well as the OSI layer, and you should know which one is the best and which is layer is currently in use. You should be aware of certain common protocols, for example TCP, UDP, etc. You should also be aware of how HTTP works, how the domain name system, that is DNS, works, and you should also be aware of the different common web protocols. So I hope these two topics from the networking section is clear. Now, from the web technology topic, you should be aware of the HTML, CSS and JavaScript basics. You must be able to create simple component structure through HTML. You should be able to style it simply with CSS, and you should be able to make it interactive with JavaScript. Again, it depends. If you are applying for web development job, you must be aware of the advanced of all these topics. Now next, you must be aware of the web servers and client server communication, how the communication takes place between the client and server, how the request is made to the server and how server gives the response to the client. You should be aware of this particular communication. So I hope this topic is clear. Now the next topic is domain of interest. Everyone has their domain of interest. I hope you also have it. And by looking at the domain of interest that we have, we always apply for the jobs. So therefore, you must master skills in at least one of the domain. For example, data science, web development, cyber security. You should have in-depth knowledge in any one of these domains that you want to make your career into, and you should also know the theoretical concepts as well as you should be able to implement it practically. And to get your dream job in your domain of interest, you must create your individual as well as group projects in that particular domain. Showcasing these particular projects in your resume as well as at the time of interview will surely help you to ace the interview. Apart from this, if you have one or two internships in your domain of interest, then it will always be a good impact on the interviewer. So mention internships if you have done. Apart from this, you should also mention the competitions that you take part in. If you make a good project, always have a practice to showcase it in competitions so that you can get a different experience. Also, you can get achievements from it. You can add these achievements into your resume as well as you can showcase this in your interviews. So I hope this is clear. Now we are done with all the important topics that are needed for preparing for the technical round as well as for the coding round. Now let's have a look at the tips and tricks for cracking the coding round. So the first tip is understand the fundamentals. You should be aware of the basics of data structures and algorithms as well as you should also be aware of the object-oriented programming basics. This will help you to crack any coding round. Next important thing is to practice. Practice the problem solving. Try to solve as much as questions as you can. Now you can practice a lot of problems through LeetCode, HackerRank and Code Signal. They are free for you to solve problems. And there is one more called as Hacker Earth. You can also visit there and you will find many problems which you can solve by applying the different DSA concepts. Have a habit of solving at least 5 problems daily. The next important thing that you can do for practicing for the coding round is to build project. Building real world project will help you to enhance your problem solving skills. Because unless and until you relate a particular topic With real world scenarios, you cannot get the insights of that particular topic. If you try to build real world projects, it will be a very good practice for you to solve the different questions easily. So always try to build projects, even if it is small projects also, then also it's okay. But by building projects, you will get a lot of understanding about the object oriented concepts, and it will help you a lot for building logics as well as writing code. Now, whenever you are solving problems, you should always focus on the time and space complexity. Even if you have a solution to a problem, it doesn't mean that particular solution is the best of all. You should learn the concept of time and space complexity. You should have a habit to analyze your code, how it is actually impacting the computational power, as well as how much time it will take to evaluate a particular problem. You should always have an eye on it. And you will build this quality just by practice. In almost every problem, many test cases are oriented with time and space complexity. Even if it provides the correct answer, your solution to a problem might not get accepted just because of the time and space complexity. So have an habit to optimize your code. Now you should also have an habit of debugging your code. It is always said that debugging is an art. Every developer must have the quality of debugging. For this, you should increase your imagination skills, your analytical skills. This is done just by practicing lot of problems. If you are stuck in any particular problem, you can get out of it through debugging. The next and the most important tip is to keep your code clean as well as use comments whenever needed. Keeping your code clean will help any evaluator to understand your code quickly. For example, if you use meaningful names to your variables whichever you are using, then it's a good practice. Whenever your code is evaluated, the evaluator will always look whether the evaluator is able to understand your code easily or not. So always use comments whenever needed. Always have a habit to read your code in such a manner that any third person is reading it without any prior knowledge of that particular code, and check whether that person will be able to understand your code easily or not. And the final tip is to manage your time efficiently. There are a lot of coding questions, and every single coding question requires a huge amount of time to get solved. So manage your time efficiently and try to switch to some other question if you are finding the current question difficult and time consuming to solve. So these are the tips for cracking the coding round. Now let's have a look at all the resources that can be used for practicing coding round. So you can practice problem solving and get a lot of questions on these three sites, that is LeetCode, HackerRank and Hacker Earth. Plenty of questions are available as a beginner, intermediate or advanced level also. You can practice more coding questions from Code Signal as well as Geeks for Geeks. Geeks for Geeks is one of the best website which provides the detailed solution of any problem in such a way that you will understand a lot of conceptual knowledge from it, as well as you will be able to solve similar questions in future. I will mention all these websites in the description box, so don't forget to visit them. And lastly, you can get a lot of free tutorials on YouTube which will be based on how to solve coding questions. Plenty of playlists are available on YouTube which will teach you almost everything related to coding round. So that's all about the coding round. Now the next section is technical interview. So let's have a look at all the tips for cracking the technical interview. I know that first impression is not always the last impression, but yes, first impression always have a greater impact. So the very first and important tip is that you should prepare all-in-one attractive introduction about you that will cover almost everything related to you. It should cover your personal background as well as your technical background. It should contain almost every single thing that you have done in your entire undergraduate course. Also, highlight all your achievements, which will be a greater attraction. Apart from this, you should be prepared with the theoretical knowledge of all the important topics in computer science. As it is a technical interview, lot of questions will be asked orally, so you should be able to explain them. Concepts like DSA, networking, OS, that is operating system, DBMS, software engineering, and programming fundamentals. These topics that I have listed earlier must be clear theoretically. And you should always have a practice to confidently answer the questions. Don't hesitate to present what you know. At the same time, don't be overconfident. Keep all your senses alive and confidently answer. And most importantly, whatever you are answering, just be aware that you are not lying about it. Do not underestimate the interviewers. So always say the truth. Do not mention any fake achievements or internships. This habit of not lying will surely help you a lot. And as I already said, always highlight your achievements and internships. If you have good art and skill, then you can mold the entire interview conversation as per what you want. So try to mention those things which you know or you have done. The next step is to be prepared with the concepts you have applied in all your past project. Anytime the interviewer can ask you to show your projects that you have done. So you should be ready with that, as well as a lot of questions will be asked based on the concepts that you have applied in your past projects. So be prepared with that. So be prepared with all these tips. Now also make a note that the interviewer can also ask you to solve any given problem statement, just like what you have done in coding round. A particular problem statement will be given to you and you will be asked to solve it. So in that particular case, there are two possible situations. First situation is that you are aware about the coding solution. That means you can easily solve it with the help of code. In this particular situation, if you are able to solve it with the help of the code, then you should follow the same guidelines that I have given in the tips for cracking the coding round, which says that your code must be clean and you should use comments and all those things. For example, keeping a track on the time and space complexity also. So you should be aware of all those guidelines. Now, this is the first case. Now, the second case is that you are not aware of the coding solution. That means you are not able to implement it from scratch. Then in this particular situation, you should at least try to provide the detailed way to solve that particular solution by using the algorithms, explanations or pseudocodes. Never directly deny to solve that particular problem. At least you should be able to explain how you can solve it, what can be different approaches or what can be systematic algorithms that can be used to solve it. So immediately the interviewer will come to know that even if you are not aware of solving it with the help of code, still you are trying to explain the different approaches for solving that particular problem. So this will be a good impact on the interviewer. Follow all these tips. I am damn sure that if you follow every single tip that I have mentioned over here, no one can stop you from cracking the technical interview round. You can crack it very easily. So that's all about the tips. Now we'll move on to the resources section, which will help you to practice for the technical interview. So as I said, lot of theoretical questions will be asked in technical interview, so you should be aware of the theoretical concepts and you can learn all those concepts from the websites like Java T Point, Geeks for Gigs and many more. You can get the frequently asked interview questions for any particular topic. Let's say if you want to prepare for DBMS, then you can simply search DBMS interview questions. Then you will get list of questions which will be very much helpful for you to learn any particular topic even from scratch. The next website is InterviewBit. Trust me, InterviewBit website is one of the best. Lot of simple, medium as well as complex questions are present on this website. Just go through all the questions once before you appear for the technical interview. It will help you a lot. The next website is Geeks for Gigs. Again, it contains a lot of interview questions. You can go through all of them. Apart from this, you can also learn for the technical interviews from the websites like Code Signal, as well as you can watch different mock interviews which are readily available on YouTube. This will surely help you a lot to get an experience of how interview takes place. Instead of wasting your time in watching the useless and cringe content on social media, you can invest your time in watching these mock interviews. This is surely going to help you a lot. I will mention all these resources in the description box. Don't forget to watch it. And lastly, I will say that success is a journey without shortcuts, where determination and perseverance pave the way. You cannot achieve anything just in a single day. For achieving a goal, you must be persistent, consistent, as well as you should be dedicated for achieving your goals. Similarly, for technical interview also, you should be dedicated and you should work hard for it. So practice a lot, and if you practice without shortcuts, then you can surely get what you want. Lastly, I would like to wish you the best. If you guys get any single doubt in this particular video, then you can straight away put it in the comment section. I'll be happy to solve it. I have worked hard a lot to make this one shot video for preparing short topics, strategies and tips for cracking the coding round as well as the technical interviews. So please guys, share it with your friends because it is going to be very much helpful for them. And also one more thing, please like this video if you like it, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel because subscription is very much important. It will help you to get notified whenever I post any new video. Hit the bell icon and follow me on Instagram.